We're going to have to go to my guest. Michael, are you with me?
Hello, Doctor. Yes, I'm here.
Yes, thank you. We apologize. We went a little bit over the time that I wanted to do this with, but apparently we hit a nerve there. Michael, tell our viewers about you and about your work. What have you been doing? Because it's really interesting. I mean, the stuff that you have researched and studied, stuff that we never read in school. They did not teach us that in college. You don't learn about that unless you actually go and look for it. I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say. Tell me who Michael Tsarion is and what got you in this mess.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Let me first say that it's wonderful to be on your show and your fine show, and to assist in getting the alternative picture of the world out, because you're one of the people that walks his talk and has individuals on your show from all walks of life and all areas of understanding. And my work started back in Ireland. I'm from Belfast, Northern Ireland, which is one of the reasons, in fact, from observing the political climate and the kind of secret society machinations that went on in my country, which alerted me to the fact that what is officially told to us on the media is not correct. This is where my one of the reasons why I got into the work that I'm doing. I'm the author of a book on Atlantis. I'm the producer of a 6-part DVD series that just came out a month ago, called the Origins and Oracles series, which is an encyclopedic work on DVD that goes into hidden mysteries and forbidden knowledge. So we've just produced that this year with the urge, with the intense idea that we are, even as bad as things are, even with the atrocities and the present climate of unrest in the world, this is a very important time for answers. I mean, obviously, I'm preaching to the choir here because you obviously feel very much the same way. And I think that we have to use the medium right now. There is a quest. There are people who want to know the answers because they're just getting sick and tired of the same old, Orwellian mind games and doublespeak. If anybody cannot see by now that we are under an Orwellian doublespeak situation and that the politicians of the world are blatantly lying and that there's a swing door kind of government in power, then we're never gonna waken those people up. So I think that even as terrible as things are, it seems to be a strange anecdote of history that as things get worse, as the ladder is pulled up on the middle class, and as things get a little bit more hot under the chair, then at least one of the positive things of that is people start to open their minds a little bit more and ask some questions. So my role is nothing more than to provide some important questions regarding that through the DVDs that I've created and also through the book that I've created. The book is on ancient Atlantis, but it's specifically about the Celts, and it's about the Arthurian Druidic tradition, which I believe is a very ancient archive that has been seriously neglected. So when historians and others are looking at the Sumerian record and the Egyptian record and the Babylonian record and the Maya record in order to find out what on earth was going on in ancient times, they seriously neglect the Celtic record. So my speciality, if you will, is the culture of England, Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, the Druidic tradition, and what that ancient tradition might be telling us, not only about the ancient world, but the world, of today, the modern world.
Okay. Now, Michael, I want to start with Atlantis. I mean, it's a subject that intrigued me, really, and I did not really think that was a real thing anyhow. Tell me about Atlantis.
Well, obviously Atlantis is a very big 8-letter word. And so many people from all walks of life have been interested in Atlantis and the ancient civilizations. This is a subject that has fascinated J.R.R. Tolkien, C.F. Lewis, in this country, Ignatius Donnelly, and Charles Berlitz. And for those who have really done their homework, they will know that Atlantis has been a fascinating subject to even the greatest philosophers on the planet. We're talking about Plato and Socrates and Aristotle. So you can't get higher up the totem pole of anybody who is in the academic world or the historical world. And this wonderful subject of the ancient prehistorical civilizations just will not go away. Just when people think that it's gone away, suddenly Egyptologists, you see, or geologists, or individuals who are looking into the fossil records, as well as mythologists, start to again find things like the Great Pyramid that was just discovered in Serbia recently, and not so long ago a huge pyramid was discovered in China, and then Graham Hancock has discovered underwater ruins right off the coast of Ceylon. So everywhere somebody turns, we're discovering something that tells us that our history is not as has been told to us. Now, all of these interesting scientific and geological and mythological subjects that go into prehistory, I think they're all very fascinating. But my work with Atlantis is more of a philosophical type of tone, more of a philosophical slant. And to be specific about that is that my work deals very much with the origins of evil. I mean, we talked earlier off air about the origins of evil, and I've always been interested in that. I've always been interested, and maybe again it's because I came out of Belfast and saw so much atrocity in the human race. But I've always been interested in what it is that is in human beings that has this penchant for sadism, for cruelty, for violence, for injustice, and so forth and so on. And this particular proclivity in human beings cuts across racial lines, it cuts across religious lines, and it cuts across any kind of class lines. You see, it even cuts across gender lines. All people have this idea to suppress those who are below them. The child will go out and will murder worms and murder insects, you see, and murder, nature. But this is just a child. If you just watch a child's behavior. Then further up the totem pole, you have the tyrants, who rule the world. Is it any different? And then there's speculation that even the gods are, of a sadistic type of, mentality. So we have a tremendous question here. And we also have the Darwinian concept that tries to explain that as being just it's inbuilt. It's just something that is inbuilt into the primitive, consciousness of human beings.
Okay, Michael, hold that thought. We're going to have to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome to the program. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are speaking with Michael Tsarion about evil. And Michael, continue with your thought about evil, and then I'm going to ask you if this evil was something that was built into us, or did we get it from somewhere? Because I want you, right after you answer this, I want you to talk about this alien invasion and the genetic manipulation. I want you to talk about that.
Well, this is all definitely connected, because when, as I'm saying, these scholars are discovering that something remarkable was taking place before history, then of course it goes without saying, why is it then that this is not officially told to us in school? You see, people kind of, forget about that. That, wait a minute, if with one hand we're proving that these ancient civilizations existed, then what would be the possible reason, what would be the market reason for all the establishment to not accept that? I mean, obviously, if ancient civilizations existed and the Ice Age did not exist, as we have been told, then why not just admit it? So, you see, by default, by the fact that there is a resistance, and a tremendous resistance to accept this, then we're on alert. Then we are put on our alert to find out what would be so important to cover this up. And we discover, interestingly, from the ancient mythologies of the world, and I mean the mythologies of the world, all of them, are speaking about, just as Zechariah Sitchin discovered in the Sumerian Babylonian ancient scripts, that this planet was visited by extraterrestrial beings who were spoken of in the ancient scriptures as the Nephilim or the Anunnaki, the fallen angels. This is now coming to light again. But the ancient record has always said this. All the native people, all the indigenous races of the world have spoken about the invasion of the sons of God who walked among men, who interfered with the destiny, the sovereignty of this planet. And I have traced back this philosophical question that I was speaking about the origins of evil. I have actually traced it back to the interference genetically, biologically, mentally, spiritually, this incredible invasion into the biology and into the psyche of mankind is the origin of the, I don't think perhaps, what I'm thinking is that this interference was so catastrophic that it forever made man a bipolar schizoid, what we might want to call schizoid being.
Okay, you're saying interference by who?
By beings from off-world agencies. There's lots of speculation as to where they may have come from. That question doesn't interest me as much. I am, again, more concerned with the fact that if such beings did visit our planet, and if they did violate the human being, as the ancient myths are saying, then, for instance, let's bring up one modern anecdote. When the museums of Iraq were looted, and I don't mean looted by people from the streets. This was a campaign of looting from some very powerful forces who went into the museums of Iraq and stole very, very important objects there. It has now come out that those objects, a lot of them were showing the evolution of man from the ancient times in a way that has not been presented to us before.
So you're saying that we did not look or feel or think the way we do now before this genetic manipulation? I mean, were we like what, Homo sapiens or something?
Well, that's very difficult to say because, of course, all the people that were here before the experimentation, they're no longer in existence. So, unfortunately, this makes the investigation, quite difficult because you have to speculate. You've got to listen to the myths. You have to speculate that maybe, what was there before, was it hominid? But you remember, from the Royal Society of England and from all the geological faculties of most of the universities of the world, including the Smithsonian Institute, and all of these government-funded edifices, we have not been told much truth. So everything that we've been told about man, about the hominids, about our evolution, including the Darwinian lie, which has now been exposed as exactly that, a lie, most of it is ridiculous. So we have to have a thorough reappraisal of just what we've been told regarding the origin and evolution of man. And I am very convinced that in the next 5 to 7 years, I state this on page 1 of my book, that I'm convinced that in the next few years we are going to have the facts of our origins and destiny, and yes, that will be very threatening to the establishment. It might be very threatening to certain individuals, but nevertheless, it is time now to have the truth, because we are bequeathing this penchant for intense violence and sadism to our forefathers, to the next generation, to the children. We have tried all forms of religious mollification. We have tried all kinds of remedies to change man's psyche, you see, and I believe that has not really worked. I mean, it may appease a certain amount of individuals. It might appease the situation, but you see, if you do not, it's like any doctor. If you have not diagnosed correctly, then you're not near the cure. At least if you diagnose the situation correctly, and you find out what kind of a pestilence is in our midst, then you're halfway or more to the cure of what has gone wrong. And this is where we're at right now. But unfortunately, as usual, when a new great truth enters the world, it is so controversial that it causes a lot of resistance. So people are going to have to bracket some of the philosophies and ideologies and agendas that they already have in order to accept. Well, people like myself and Graham Hancock and Michael Cremo, you see, and David Icke and other people who are looking into these mysteries, they're going to have to bracket a lot of what they already know, and this is difficult for people. So we're always up against massive resistance whenever a new, paradigm to explain things philosophically, spiritually, biologically comes into the world. Then there's always a lot of resistance because people need to sort of, scale back some of the lies and the rubbish that they've already, absorbed from the corridors of power, so to speak.
Okay, so then tell me, how did we end up all being manipulated by these forces that you are saying they started way back in ancient time, and it's the same forces that are still controlling us now?
Yes, because after the genetic hybridization was accomplished, then every human being that existed has both the alien and the human DNA. And therefore the descendants, we're talking about a bloodline descendancy, going all the way down to modern times, so that perpetually the bloodline descendants of these Anunnaki or these fallen angels have been still behind the thrones of government and power. The symbolism tells us this, And the actions of the modern world tell us this. The fact that our technological expertise has far accelerated in front of the spiritual and emotional maturity of mankind also tells us this. We have evidence for this. There's lots of evidence for the fact that we are still under control. And in fact, whatever agenda that these ancient aliens had, we are now, I am thinking that we are now actually playing it out. We are in the final days of something that started many, many millennia ago. So that even in my work, which concerns, secret societies, and when I teach and talk upon that, on these fraternities and secret societies, the two things that I try to make very clear for people is that do not ever imagine that the atrocities that you see in the modern world since you've been alive just began in your lifetime. Don't even believe that they started, from the advent of Christianity. These are very ancient. The agendas of the modern secret societies and what we imagine to be political societies is an extremely antique thing. This is the first thing to get across to people who are not familiar with this, is that it's very, very old. And the second thing to have understood is that we now may be in the final stages of something that began
now,
millennia ago.
Michael, why now, and what are these final stages might look like? Why did not take place, let's say, 1,000 years ago?
Right. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of the most important is that during the ancient times, when they were just trying to accomplish this agenda that has taken them now so long, they were prevented from doing it because of the famous war of the gods. All the ancient legends that talk about the visitation of alien beings also speak about the fact that there was a worldwide global war. And this global fight, this conflict, which has entered down into our mythology and entered down into our religions as the great conflict between the forces of light and darkness, this had devastating effects. And it was this war that basically destroyed the continents of old, destroyed a lot of the hardware, the technological hardware that these alien beings had brought with them, and also then, of course, delayed the denouement, delayed the outcome scenario. And basically, as hard as it's going to be for most people to grasp this fact, these individuals have been manipulating the flow of history to the point where they can rebuild the technological age and rebuild. And so our industrial age, let's say the Renaissance, the industrial age, the agricultural age, and then moving into the silicon age, these ages are, in fact, compelled. These are by design. The whole idea is that for 11,000 years now, what we call our society has been artificially manipulated. History has been manipulated by these very powerful coteries to move us forward to the point where the technological hardware can be rebuilt that was lost in ancient times. And that's why we speculate that we're in the end times now, is because of the building back of this technology.
Now, explain to me, speaking about technology, explain to me why humans have been able to rise so high technologically, but their psychological and spiritual, beings is not as high. It's not matching our technological expertise. Tell me why.
Well, the real reason goes back to the very first experiments. When the off-world beings came here and colonized Atlantis and the other ancient civilizations, they set up, as I say, these genetic experiments. But they kind of made a mistake with the first creature that they made, whom I refer to as Homo Atlantis. When they created this being, they extended to this being not only the great human qualities that they may have from our predecessors, but they also endowed them with a high intelligence. And therefore, they found that this being, this creature that they created, would not serve them correctly, because this individual, this being, this race of beings that they created had high intelligence. So then when they moved on to the second, because they basically phased out this being, or this being was a very strong rebellious type of character who in the end would not serve their masters. So when these masters of Atlantis then created the second being, a slave race, a slave unit, they made sure that they would be ignorant, that they would take away the centers of intelligence and would basically dumb them down. And so there has been a campaign from day one to make sure that the slave is kept as a slave, and at the same time will be functional enough to do what is required in order for the agenda, which is that, this technological advancement, to proceed. So from the earliest times, man has been nothing but a chattel, nothing but a slave. in order to facilitate an agenda. And it's the same story today.
Okay. Okay, now where do reptilians come into this picture?
Well, of course, this has been, spoken a lot in people who've written on this subject. And the reptilians in my book, very quickly, are a race of beings that was created here on the planet in the same way that the Homo Atlantean being was created. Only this time it was with alien DNA and with animal DNA. There was no human DNA at all. There was a reason, a very special reason, why another kind of slave race was required. But they decided not to use the human DNA. They had done a lot of biological research on the animals, the fauna on this planet. And they crossed their own alien DNA, which of course is humanoid. But this alien DNA was crossed, I believe, with certain animal species. And this is where we get in mythology the story of the Minotaur and the Centaur and the unicorn, you see, and the Siren, and all of these bizarre hybrid creatures, the dragon beings and so on. And this is where today the reptilian idea comes from. They are not beings from another planet. They are beings that were specifically created here to serve a particular function. And they still exist. And because they had humanoid DNA, some so-called reptilian beings can look identical to human beings because, of course, they have humanoid DNA. So it's just like any child that's born. Some can be very much one or the other. Some children are born that are intensely reptilian-looking, and, of course, they make sure that those children are sequestered away. I believe that they're sequestered in underground. There's evidence that they're sequestered underground, in underground cities that the elites have. But if a child is reptilian but should be very humanoid-looking, you could be walking past those creatures in the streets. Basically, they could be walking around amongst us, and I believe, in fact, that they do walk amongst us. And some very clairvoyant type people have.
Wait. What do you mean? Who are these people that walking amongst us?
The reptilians. The reptilians can look. Some of them can look very human, and therefore they could be walking around amongst us. We wouldn't even know it.
I think I know a couple of people that I might.
Well, this is the interesting thing, Doctor, because the clairvoyants are backing this up. And, of course, you may not know it with your senses, but you may know it with your intuition. When you have a very strong dislike...
But wait a minute. I mean, are these people like people we talk to and live with and intermarry with? And
yes. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There's no doubt in my mind that they are walking loose in the world.
Well, how do we know? How do we know the difference between us and them? Or are we... Maybe we could be them and we could be part of them?
Yes, many people are that, and you would not know it who is around you unless you have highly intuitive abilities. Which, of course, those intuitive abilities have been all dumbed down in the school situation. So, of course, we are becoming victims of a lot of these people. I believe that the government and the halls of power are riddled with such beings. They're not human. They are fully. I mean, they could look human to you, but they are absolutely reptilian in the true sense of the word. Meaning that
now, are they like, as far as power, do they have more power than humans, or it doesn't matter?
Well, remember, power is knowledge. So they have knowledge, so they are more powerful. The average person does not know the kind of... it's like the sheep in the abattoir, in the slaughterhouse.
Now,
most people are like that.
Michael, I mean, we only have like 4 minutes left in the first hour, but we do have the full of the second hour. We're not going to waste any time on the second hour, and also we will welcome your phone calls and questions to Michael in the second hour. But to get the second hour started, I want you to explain something to me, because on this program and everywhere you will hear that those societies that control the world. We talk about Freemasonries, we talk about Illuminatis, we talk about Knights Templar, and all these Freemason societies. I see most of their symbols are Egyptian.
That's right.
But then now today we say the Jews are in control of the world. They decide. They have the money. They have the power. In about a couple of minutes, go ahead and let's get that subject started, and we'll cover it in the second hour.
Okay, that sounds good.
Go ahead. Tell me. We still have about 2 minutes left. Of why. I mean, on this program we talk about the Jews are powerful. They are in these secret societies. They started them. Tell me about that.
Let's put it this way. The Jewish question, the Jews, so-called, or let's be more specific, the Khazarian elite within the Jewish people have as much power as the glove puppet does. So when you see the glove puppet and the child mind imagines that the glove puppet is working on its own, it doesn't see the strings and it certainly doesn't see the master who's controlling that puppet. Yes, the glove puppet has tremendous power. The glove puppet can carry the big stick, the big baton, and keep beating, you know, the other puppets over the head, and can even look like a dragon or can look like a crocodile and scare the hell out of everybody. Absolutely, it can appear to have power, but you see, when one is enlightened as to what the real secrets are, one doesn't blame the glove puppet, because the glove puppet is nothing. In my researches, we understand that the secret societies go way back to Egypt. And just like I discovered in Ireland with the IRA, and just as I discovered with most of the Freemasonic societies and fraternities, and that Judaism is a Freemasonic society. Zionism is not of Jews at all. Zionism is nothing more than a wing of secret societies. It is a political term. It is created by British intelligence and funded from New York. So it has almost nothing to do with anything religious whatsoever. The difference between the Jewish Torah and Zionism, you couldn't have two things more different. And
so why the Jewish people are after Zionism? Why did they go along with Zionism?
I'll tell you why. And this also needs to be listened to very carefully by people who are tuning in from all over the world, and also by Jews themselves. The Jews themselves are the biggest victims of their own controllers, their own elites. The Zionist elites, and many rabbis know this, you've had many on your own show, so I'm not really saying anything that new, but let's make the point very clear again, that in this great slaughterhouse of the world, in this great dialectical war that is being perpetrated, the Jews themselves, those who consider themselves religious Jews, have been some of the biggest victims. And there's going to be no awakening. There's going to be no peace until not only the Arabs and the Gentiles understand what is going on, but the Jew himself understands that he is, if not the first victim, that he better realize that he is being a puppet used by some extremely adroit forces that do not love them, that even though they may be hiding behind the guise of Judaism, they have no connection to the Torah. They are not religious Jews. And
we are out of time. We will be back. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back. So everybody, we're going to continue with this in the second hour. It's a fascinating subject. If you disagree with Michael, call us in the second hour. We will be back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
My name is Linda Williamson, and I'm with the Louisiana Violence Prevention Alliance. And in order to bring awareness to violence within our community, the Silent Witness Initiative was created. I have with me Miss Alicia Isaac, who was murdered April the 8th, 1999, who was our first female witness, and the unveiling was done in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And the Silent Witness brings hope and healing to families that have lost loved ones due to domestic violence. And our goal is to have zero tolerance by 2010. And the witness behind me tells the story of a woman who was murdered as a direct result of domestic violence. And it also tells her birth date and the date that her life was tragically taken. And if anyone is interested in their loved one being a witness, you can reach me at 237-2090, or you can email me at noviolencela@yahoo.com. And also, the Louisiana Violence Alliance has 3 task forces. We have the Acadia Task